So my name is Candice Fabry. I am the owner of Fearless and Capable. I also dabble in coaching around the Kansas City area with the KC Courage and with Ottawa University. And I have been doing Coffee in Progress now for a handful of years and was excited at the opportunity to bring it into the Women in Soccer Network and then align with Rachel and Pip and Courtney is really a fantastic opportunity. You know, every couple months, but I am gonna be honest, I probably am monthly chatting with him on something that we're trying to do to make the game of soccer a better experience for all, truly. And so I really want to remind everyone, you know, why are we here today? And what is the hope out of every Coffee in Progress and then specifically today? And so as a reminder, these are conversations that are going to have, you know, personal impacts, personal emotions, and then also lived experiences that are going to be reflected on for everybody, genuinely. And so always, as we do here, respect is number one, leading with kindness, calling in, not calling out, and understanding that this is a conversation that some people will engage in, and we encourage you to. And you can do that through the chat, or you can unmute and ask questions. If we really think about it, we just took over a coffee shop, and we're gonna have some conversation today. And with that second part, we're going to hopefully have some progress, and that progress is going to come in a couple different ways. It could come through thoughts, ideas, maybe even projects, groups to follow or join, or maybe even some research to learn about and understand. And there's that transition to what we're really focusing on today, which is that cultural allyship, and really that the pitch is for everyone, and that we know that the World Cup is coming up. It's on the horizon, but as exciting as it is to have a World Cup year ahead of us, we simply have to be able to recognize that the pitch, though we say is for everyone, is still having spaces where individuals are being excluded. And that is where we're headed today with really, one, this most amazing group of women, not just on the field, but around the field, around the pitch, doing the work to understand really we're socially, you know, this is a topic that, you know, we need to be more aware of on a more conscious basis, on a daily basis. And so our focus really is today with the I want to make sure I say this right, Les Hijabeuses. And we are really, really excited that this expert panelist today, you all, she is amazing. I honestly was like, can we just put her on? I'll just mute, and we're all just going to learn so much when we were prepping for this call. And, you know, I will get to her bio in a second, but if you notice in your screen, Haïfa is here with us today. And so we'll let her kind of say hi here in a second and where she's calling from, but an amazing human being that I am certain is going to inspire and motivate you at the end of this call. And I do promise we will get out of here in an hour, but I will tell you this right now, you're gonna leave an hour kind of frustrated that we didn't have more time. I'm just gonna be honest, that's how it always goes, but my hope is that you leave with that desire to have some progress in your own life and in the communities you're involved with. But before I get to our expert, I do need to say a special thank you to a couple people. Rachel and Pip with the Women in Soccer Network make this possible. And so want them to have the chance to unmute, say hello to everybody so that you know who these wonderful people are. So we will start with, which one? Are we gonna go Rachel or Pip? Who wants to go first? I feel like we go Rachel first. Can we go Pip this time just to kind of change things up? Pip, say hello, please. Uh-oh, the mute button. It's the most infamous button in the Zoom world.
Good. I'm here. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all and also see familiar Coffee in Progress faces. I feel like I'm seeing my Coffee in Progress friends. So I'm like, go ask 11 a.m. and we're diving into an impactful conversation. And what excites me is seeing the coffee chat of everyone spread all over the country. Is we know you take these kind of difficult, complex, action-driven conversations and then spread them in your own soccer communities, which is why we're all here. So it's a pleasure to have you all join, and I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. I agree. It's kind of the shivers up of like, this is what these days always look like. And Rachel, can you go ahead and unmute and say hello to everybody?
Hi, everybody. As always, thank you so much. Pip said it perfectly, so I will leave it at that. It's a pleasure to have you all here, and I'm excited that we could be here again on another morning. I will also add, just as a reminder, these incredible events are sponsored and supported by our partners. I will do your shout out, Candice. Fearless and Capable is an incredible membership community. And as a partner and supporter of the women in soccer community, Fearless and Capable has offered a discount to all members of our community to join their incredible membership program. So please, if you work or are a part of the soccer industry in any capacity, Fearless and Capable has incredible resources to help you achieve your goals. So go ahead, jump in, get that discount and learn more. We will be sure we share a link to that too, but Candice is doing incredible work to garner people together and help them be the best versions of themselves. And then not only that, Kickoff Coffee Co. is another one of our incredible sponsors. And coffee is truly delicious. It's even great in a post end of evening. So for those of us joining us in other parts of the world that are later in the day, we've made espresso martinis if you are of the alcohol kind. So promise they're delicious there too. But truly, everyone on this call receives a discount code for this coffee that is by soccer people for soccer people. So you can use WIS15 at checkout. And again, we'll drop that in the chat as well. I'll hand it back to Candice. Just before I hand it back to Candice, I wanted to say an extra special thank you to Haïfa and the entire Les Hijabeuses community for being a part of our conversation today. We are really looking forward to diving in. So Candice, I'll hand it to you. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so without further ado, Haïfa is here with us, and it's genuinely an honor, one, two, so appreciative of what she does. And I'm going to just touch on, just a little bit of what this amazing woman is doing. As an academic and expert researcher, she's been focused, on action research mobilization and open this Pandora's box to analyze the legal and sociological context with method to reinforce leadership, advocacy, and lobbying. The analysis focuses on the discriminating experiences, representations, and discourses of women concerned, plus, the other sports actors that make this sport go, our referees, our coaches, the club leaders, and to understand the paradoxes, ambiguities, and errors in order to change these discriminatory regulations and making soccer and sport more accessible to all. So Haïfa, can you unmute if you're not yet and say hello to everyone?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. And, you can hear that my accent is really exotic, French accent. I'm so sorry if there is some, words not really connected. Don't hesitate to ask a question in the, in the chat. But I think it's to understand the situation in France, and I will do my best for sharing my observation and my analysis in this campaign.
Yeah, we're all in for a treat and really appreciate it, and certainly will help assist if there's anything that we need in terms of language assistance. But we're there. And before we completely get into the question part, as a reminder, the resources and support that come from these conversations are really, really important. Not just the live conversation, and there is a recording you'll be able to receive, but also a handful of other things that we do want you to feel supported with. And honestly, get that progress in the education that you yourself can obtain. And so the resource master, Pip Penman, always. So Pip, real quick, can you give some rundowns of some things that our listeners and anybody who is able to view this later should expect in their inbox in the near future?
Absolutely, yeah. As Candice said, this is an action-driven conversation and we want it to be interactive. So throughout the event, drop in resources of your own, and also you can add to this toolkit afterwards. But I'm going to highlight some useful things that might be good for this conversation this afternoon. So the WIS inclusion letter, we always like to start there. It is a really useful document for fostering inclusion and difficult conversations. As Candice mentioned earlier, call-ins are key. There's no shame in misunderstanding or not understanding something. Just learn and move from there. And we'll put in the chat Dr. Haïfa Tlily's Research Centre of Gender Diversity and Intersectionality page. And as we're about to learn in this conversation, research in the academic world is critical to furthering causes in an inclusive and impactful way. And Haïfa really welcomes any inquiries and collaborations after this event is going to help drive our equity-driven work. So you'll get some contact details with that too. And Athlete Ally, we love Athlete Ally. We're going to have a representative join us in a bit. And Athlete Ally are an organisation that inspire leaders in sports to promote positive change on matters of LGBT equity and human rights in sports. So we're really excited to have them represented. The Centre for Sports of Human Rights, their mission is to advance the world of sports in a way that represents all human experiences, very critical for this conversation too. And the Human Rights Watch, and they defend the rights of people in 100 countries worldwide and spotlight abuses and promote justice. And we've had kind of leaders and representatives from these organisations shape the conversation and why we're here today. So that's been brilliant. Articles I think are useful. We've got The Practice of Wearing a Veil by Women in Soccer, realised by Haïfa Tlili and Les Hijabeuses, and that really gives you a grounding understanding of where we are with organisational barriers that are preventing access to sport. An article and a piece I really like that I believe we're going to talk on more later with Athlete Ally is an Athlete Ally and a Shirzanen piece that demands that FIBA, which is the Basketball Association, overturn its hijab ban. And I really like this because it showcases the power of collaboration. We're all from different organisations, but this is a piece where one organisation who might not have been an expert on a certain topic like leverage their own impact to help and support a cause so that we have access for all Muslim women in sports everywhere. And Nike Media Spotlight on the Les Hijabeuses is a great piece because it focuses on the social media element and how their social media content hit viral, and that really disseminated a lot of information to everyone. So make sure everyone leaves following Les Hijabeuses on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll drop that in the chat. Podcasts, for those of you who love to get your information on a morning walk or run, Burn It All Down, we love. Follow them, listen to them. It's an intersectional feminist podcast. An episode that will drop is about the evolution of politics on sports uniforms and how much politics and cultural barriers or acceptance shape what we can wear as athletes. And one piece of a quote in this podcast that I think is so useful for this conversation was by Shireen Ahmed in the podcast. And she is an industry expert on Muslim women in sports. And she states in the podcast, the reason that sports hijab evolved into mainstream, and by that the sort of Nike hijabs that we see, was literally to challenge hijab bans. And I think that just showcases how powerful sports design are. So we know we've got Wiz designers, we're looking at you, your designs that go out into the world of sports make a difference. And then for those of you that think watching a short film would be helpful, we'll drop in a mini documentary by Eurosports that's on the inspiring story of Les Hijabeuses, so you can get a visual perspective of what it's like for them in France right now. And yeah, that's all for me, and I'll hand it back to the experts, but drop resources in the chat or email us afterwards.
I love when she says, it's just that, and we just got a ton of resources, and Rachel's doing a fantastic job of adding those to the chat. And I will encourage you that if there is a resource we don't mention or there's something you're aware of, please put it in the chat if you have a link that really helps. But we want to hear about things that maybe we do know about and we haven't mentioned this conversation, or things that we haven't yet discovered. I think it's always important. So that conversation, and that's getting us towards progress. So let's hear from the expert. So Haïfa, again, thank you for joining us. I love all the books in the background, like just the whole vibe of what you do is coming through right now. So just tell us, for everyone here, what is Les Hijabeuses and how did it start? What's the significance? All right, what do we got?
Yeah, you said it's complicated because it's for non-French speakers. I acknowledge that it's really complicated. It's the association of two words, hijab and beuse. Beuse is the suffix of woman football player in French. And the word hijabeuses is what best represents them today, a collective that highlights Muslim women footballers who wear hijab to play their sport and who want to compete like everyone else. They are really proud of their two elements, which make up their identity among others, but they will not choose between one or the other. And using the word hijabers, it's really performative. It's to impose, by a way, their identities, the complexity of their identities, and really to push to respect them for what they are and to stop the exclusion, the humiliation, which have serious consequences of them, but also on the living together in France, and to understand what does it mean to be a hijabi, a Muslim woman, sporty, athlete woman, in France or around the world. Yeah. I think it's important to know that hundreds and hundreds of women are still now excluded from any pitches because they decided to wear a hijab, because it's important for them to wear the hijab. I don't want to speak about it's really a hijab of sport. It's like a Nike or other brands, really adapted for sport, but it's also really adapted to their identities.
Correct. Yeah, and that's, I think, important that, it's motivating, it's inspiring that they took, that hijab and they put it in the title of it. I mean, you look at it and it's right there in terms of what is one of those identity pieces, and to understand the complexity of how there are hundreds of women not playing or allowed to play on a pitch because of something simply around their head. And it's hard. It's crushing in the soul. It makes my heart hurt. But I realize that, there's, as Pip outlined, there's videos, there's social media, there's this image that we're seeing, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot that's gone into it, and particularly coming from you and the research you've done. So, besides going and following and understanding what's below that iceberg, what's below the surface that, maybe the everyday person isn't able to see or could look for more. So what issues are still persisting when we look at this group?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of prejudices around this new population, because now they're more and more visible, and we feel that maybe it's a strange reaction, and it's maybe a bad reaction of this Muslims community, but it's still there, since Muslims community and their identity is very important for them, but the visibility of the hijab, it's something very important now, and we have to act that, and we have to respect that. For introducing, to understand for non-French people, we don't have in France the possibility to measure to have data, to have access of quantitative data on religious aspects and identity, very different from United States or other country. That's a problem, because we don't know exactly how many there are, but we see on the ground, that there are so many, and they are just afraid. Maybe they feel that it's not their place, the sports ground, and they are just questioning themselves. Is it good or not? Where is my place? Maybe I have to be, I don't know, to be not proud of myself and to culpabilize, to be who I am. It's really, strange reaction. No one want to open this Pandora box, because of course the majority of the people who are in responsibility, they are not concerned by the subject. There is a big gap and no data. That's the starting point. No data.
Yes, I think one of the pieces and parts that I know I encourage a lot is facts, our data, and our feelings. And moving forward with both has its benefit, to have the information and the research that individuals like you have done, and then also understanding the feelings of these women. As you said, I don't know if I belong. I don't know if this is good or bad. I don't know where I'm safe, where I'm, seen and heard. Again, it's heartbreaking, but I know what, and I can see what this is doing for the identities. Now, understanding though, the research you've done is incredible. One, how long do you think I know it's still in process, but how long ago did you start the research and the data collection for this?
Yeah, it's important to understand the context, very violent on that subject.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, we target a lot of Muslims, hijabis, like maybe they are not a good citizen, but that also has an impact in the research spheres. I don't want to enter in this subject, but the government few months ago start to target all the people who are working around Muslims community. Maybe they produce something that can help, you know, by a way radicalization, and there is a lot of misunderstanding. And of course, if you are not concerned by the subject, the fear is here. It's okay, but that's the power of the sociology and the work that I can do. The starting point was 2019. I was invited to a 20th anniversary of Fair Network. I don't know if you know, Fair Network is an NGO who fight against racism and discrimination in football. And I was speaking with the president, the director, Chiara, and I said that, you know, I'm not a football player. I'm a sporty. I've done my study also in sports for being maybe educator in sports. But yeah. I said that I just want to work on Muslims women who wear the hijab, who were excluded from the pitch. And why this issue? Why no one moved? Why we, by a way, said that there is more and more women engaged in football and we are proud of that. But we, in the same way, we are invisibilized, dehumanized, not taking account all these women who are really in power, who want to be who they are, you know, and that's a shame. And I started with them in a workshop during the World Cup, the Women World Cup. Mm-hmm. It was fabulous because I invited very important women. Shireen Ahmed, she was there in Canada, and also a lawyer and sociologist, and they answer to the question that it's unfair. It's not, you know, you cannot in France exclude women because of her religious belief, you know, but we have some gray zone, like what is security, what is secularism, how people understand that. And maybe this gap who creates so much misunderstanding and exclusion. That's why I started to do this research with Nike at the beginning. And another workshop to present the first results. And after that, we invite 70 women. The majority were hijabis, Muslims, but also allies, and also people who want to understand. The majority were women, with Women Win. Women Win very involved in this issue, an NGO based in Amsterdam, but work all around the world on empowerment and leadership for girls and women, and Fair Network. And at the end of this workshop, women started to understand that they don't know the regulation, they don't know exactly what is the issue in law aspects, and they know that it's unfair. Well, we have to be in action and start here at that point a call to action with Alliance Citoyenne. It's an NGO also who fights, you know, discrimination and help to mobilize all this population with the community organizing methods. And that's the power of this campaign, you know, to combine three entities very powerful: the men concerned, the women themselves who are invisibilized, dehumanized, to help them to liberate, to free their speech and to know, you know, what's happening in their emotion, in their situation, but also to discuss all collectively. And with Alliance Citoyenne, the community organizing and the research part, we're starting slowly to open boxes and to give, you know, voices and to put people connected in that important issue.
so much in just that response that I would love to, again, this will be way too short of a conversation, but first off, thank you for starting that conversation, for going in and having the voice that is so needed, and the request and the power, as you said, in that collective of bringing lots together in a space to, one, educate, to acknowledge what we all know, which is this is unfair. At the very base is unfair, but the layers, that iceberg, as we kind of talked about below, of what are the things that we aren't necessarily recognizing that leads to the invisibility. And so I'm interested, where are you at right now with this research? What are some of the things that are kind of climbing to the top that you're looking into as it relates to the progress that Muslim women, and particularly the issues with hijab, where are you at right now in your own research and work?
Yeah, I said that there is a gap between representation and discourses, dominance, also in connection with the men concerned, the women themselves, but also sports actors. The power of this discussion, and because it's not only an issue of hijabis,
right.
It's because of the representation, the bad representation, that sports actors exclude hijabis.
Right.
And they have also their own responsibilities. Why they exclude, if they understand well the situation? Maybe they don't know about the Muslims community, and it's the fact. They don't really know what's happened. They just, construct by the dominant discourses that Islam is not good, hijab is not accepted. And naturally, they are just afraid about the impact of accepting this woman in their club. Maybe they will lose their funds, they will lose their recognition in front of the FFF. Maybe they will, be mediatized too much, and that will have an impact in his or her own career. And that's, it's difficult to hear that, because when you read the law and when you read the rights, and the right in French, but also in sports, human rights, everyone has the possibility to practice sports. It's, it's normal. You have to authorize and to develop sports if a woman wants to practice in any level, in competition and leisure. That's in different ages. That's the power of being in a democracy, as in France. I think that's the gap between the two representation. And also, everything can change with the main concerned. And it's not a new issue, the hijab ban in France.
Right.
It's something since the colonization.
Right.
And there's an history around the hijab ban. But now we have Muslims women, majority in poor neighborhoods, their practice sports. The main issue today, it's the fact that more and more women and girls, they decide to not practice sports. This is the main issues. This is normally we have to be afraid about that. What the consequence of that, it's a big issue, but you have more and more girls and women, hijabis or not, Muslims or not, who came from this, neighborhoods. This is their roots. This is what is important for them. And because they decided, when there are enough adults, they decide to wear the hijab. This is their own. We don't have to enter in this explanation why they wear hijab. It's important for them. How they use their body, it's important for them.
Yes.
And when you give a voice to the girls, of course, at the end of the discussion, they started to authorize, to say that I'm in the right place. And of course, I will speak loud, I will take the mic, and I will engage more and more, not for myself, but for the next generation.
So empowering. And I think one of the things that we had touched on as one of the sport actors that in WIS, I think we do get heavily thought of clubs and coaches and owners. You mentioned the referees, and I wanted to touch on that just as one of the sport actors and how that impacts. And I don't think that issue is far from sometimes the things that we can experience in the game here in terms of application of rules and policies. So tell us a little bit about the referees. I thought that was a really interesting point when you and I spoke about, some of the things they are facing.
Yeah, they just, you have I want to say that I spoke with 50 girls and women, majority women, because they're enough old, 18 plus and they decided to wear the hijab. Of course, we have some a little younger, but the majority is around 18 and 24, 25, maybe more. But 50 women. And I spoke also with 50 sports actors. Inside you have formal and informal interviews, referees, and the referees also club leaders and also coaches. But with the referees, it was really interesting when you spoke with referees around who are a bit to live with hijabis, and they're really involved in the poor neighborhoods. They just see that it's normal for them, Right. They don't see the hijab as a negative thing. They don't see the hijab as a proselytist, object, and they Right. just see a woman who want to practice football. But this is interesting. Some of them, the majority of them said, of course, sometimes I see that it's not proselytism, and I let her enter in on the pitch, but they are always afraid of any control of the French Federation of Football. Monthly, they have a control, and if they are controlled, of course, they will lose their points to evaluate in Right. his own or her own career. Right. They are really afraid, but what it's important to say, because the women, they are not, playing with the same referee every week. The referee Right. change. That means it could be, the referee could be very open and see that there is no problem and they authorize, but the week after, she can probably not be able to practice and Right. to be with her team. And that's the problem. The change. Yes. It's really hard when you are involved in your, with your coach, with your team, to be part of the team, to, every week, twice, maybe 3 times during the week, and you are not, maybe you don't know if you will be able to play the game. It's something that kill definitely the motivation of each woman, and the consequences is hard. You cannot imagine the consequences of every frustration. Right. And that's what we don't want to produce, the frustration and maybe the hate. Right.
That's where I thought, and exactly regarding the referees and just the decision where it's as simple as letting them on the field and showing that allyship, that, that identity that we value and we see and we respect. And to know that they're inconsistent in that application because it's person to person, and the fear. And that's what I keep hearing, is that fear, and knowing that there are young women who just want to play this wonderful, beautiful game that a lot of us enjoy and want to have the freedom to express ourselves on the field, and, are facing such measures to try to stop them is really difficult. And, we are joined today with Athlete Ally, and I believe Joanna is on the line with us. And Joanna, if I said your name incorrectly, please let me know. I apologize on that.
No worries. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me be a part of this conversation. I think it's really critical that we're talking about these issues, and I'm grateful to be here. My name is Joanna Hoffman. I am the Director of Communications at Athlete Ally, and my pronouns are she, her.
Wonderful. And don't go too far because I'm about to ask you a question. One, appreciate you joining the call. I know you had some things a little bit earlier, but I'm going to throw a big one at you. No softball here, but how do you take an intersectional approach to solving human rights issues for athletes? That's we're just talking athletes, as we were just talking about numerous actors of coaches and owners and referees, but I'll throw it to you, to the athletes, the ones that we want to have on the pitch, giving all of that effort and creativity and passion that makes this game beautiful. So what's Athlete Ally doing to help?
So I'll answer that by talking a little bit about our specific work in that space, but I'll start that with the context of just kind of who we are, what we do. So Athlete Ally is a nonprofit organization founded in 2011 that works to educate and activate athletic communities to eliminate homophobia and transphobia in sports, and also to exercise their leadership to champion LGBTQI+ equality. We organize and mobilize athletes to use their leadership to champion social justice and LGBTQI equality, and we do this in 4 primary ways: through education, by bringing educational trainings to athletes, teams, leagues, governing bodies, student athletes; working to develop inclusive policies up to the highest levels of sports; championing athlete activism through the athletes that we work with around the globe, and through research. And I think so often athletes are told to, quote unquote, stick to sports and to not talk about social issues, but we don't shut off who we are when we set foot on the playing field. We bring our full selves into every part of our lives, and we deserve to be safe and welcome and included in every part of our lives. We know that homophobia is a weapon of sexism, and it's rooted in this idea that people have to conform to narrow definitions of what it means to be a man or a woman. And what this has meant throughout the history of sport is that anyone who is seen as falling outside of that norm, so particularly Black and brown women from the global South, have been subjected to really discriminatory and invasive policies. In the case of Muslim women, we've seen continued attacks against their human rights and against their right to have their human rights respected on and off playing fields. So back in 2017, FIBA, which is the International Basketball Federation, so when they passed their discriminatory headgear ban, which adversely was targeting Muslim women wearing hijab, we partnered with Shir Zanan, a media and advocacy organization for Muslim female athletes, to call on FIBA to overturn that ban. We took this approach of partnering with Shir Zanan because we know that while we have the ability to mobilize athletes, that topic wasn't our area of expertise. Our approach to lead partner support is driven by our values around intersectionality, which includes looking for how we can provide support and amplification, but also knowing when it's important to let a partner organization that has lived experience and expertise in that topic really drive the campaign forward. So part of that joint campaign included an open letter signed by over 30 elite athletes around the world calling for the overturning of that ban. And then in May of that year, thankfully, FIBA did overturn the ban, resulting in a more equitable experience for observant Muslim women athletes across the world. So I bring that up because, I think it's important to talk about what intersectionality can look like in practice as well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, fighting for safe and inclusive spaces for everybody means taking an intersectional lens to see who's being excluded, who's being silenced, who's having their rights threatened, and how we can best amplify those voices, leverage those in positions of power to act in allyship, and to work to shift or dismantle power structures so that we see greater equity for everybody.
Simple, right? I mean, it's so necessary, so needed. And when you put it in the ways that it's so well, one, articulated, and two, what just seems to just for most of us, I think on this call to be, why aren't we already there? Why? And so I'm going to ask both of you this question. It's actually from one of our audience members, Jude Moore. Jude has been on as an expert panelist in one of our conversations. I believe it was in June in the Pride Month. And Jude does excellent work with queer youth in action. And so I know they are, one, a supporter of what we do with Coffee in Progress, but two, just an amazing human being with thoughtful questions. And they got one. Jude has a question for you guys, and this is the question. What can non-Muslim people, especially white people, do to advocate for systematic change in addition to representation? Maybe even things that expand beyond sport. Who wants to take that question first?
Yeah, I can start. I was really surprised with the collective about the reaction when the collective started the campaign. Of course, it was not in the culture of Muslims community to define themselves as activists, because feminists, I said white feminists, dominant in France, destroy the important issue of feminist, what I want to say, that intersectional feminist, that you want to take and include everyone. And they were not really proud to be defined as an activist, but with the help of so many LGBTQ plus women or not involved in the campaign, they were so powerful. They want to to help them to be the best allies for them. They show them what is activism, why it's important. They help them, if they want to, I don't know, do a manifestation or to organize a tournament, they were always there. And that's, it's really powerful, because you feel for that woman, Muslim woman, invisibilized. They feel so important for the football community, and that's give a lot. I think the other thing, it's with the help of the for instance, the Hijabeuses, really important in France. They started to create link between, important institution, and that's help a lot, Les Hijabeuses, to be integrated in the sports community and football community.
Yeah, the links are important, the ways to bring groups together. And, Joanna, you were kind of mentioning that. So I'll let you know, or let you have the chance. What are some other things you might want to add on what non-Muslim people can do to, advocate?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first that it's about recognizing that we are all in this fight. I love the quote by Fannie Lou Hamer, which is, none of us is free until all of us is free, and recognizing that these structures that say that you can only participate in sport if you conform to certain standards, those are systemic practices that hurt everybody, that hurt all of us, that we all need to be fighting against. But I'd also say, that it's really important to know when to be quiet, to listen, to take the time to listen to what people who are directly affected by these practices are saying, to make their voices be centered, and to let them be driving the conversation forward. And then to look to see, for those of us who are not directly affected, to look to see, what are the levers of privilege and power we can use to best amplify and support them. I would say that's the best way.
Amplifying their voice, amplify their voices. And I want to leave the space for both of you to kind of give some final words. I would love for you to include any ways that they can, read more, whether it's research or whether it's a social media or a website. I'm going to give you that space now to share with our audience. And I say that because, for who I recognize on the call and who I don't, this is a space of individuals that I know all believe in the amplification of voices of marginalized people, and we've had so many conversations. And I don't say that to be a record just repeating it. You all are hearing the significance of someone's allowance of a voice to come forward and the benefits that have already happened, but the progress that is so needed in order to keep pushing for that invisibility to just completely be removed and allowing people to show up as their most authentic and best version to the pitch, whether it's on or around. And I think that's an important aspect. So Haïfa, I'm going to let you go first. What do you want the people on the call to be able to know about you, where they can go to learn more about what you're doing and keep up with things?
Yeah, it's a long journey. We know that, even if at the beginning we were just positive, and we know we have the key, we will change the society, because now we understand, and we are in a good place. We know that, but it's a long journey. I think it's important to understand that there is no cultural specificity of French. The rights, it's the same for everyone. And if you don't understand the culture of French, maybe the French, they are not able to, explain correctly what is secularism and why it's important to, use the right definition of secularism, because it's a beautiful concept. I think for us, and also in the connection, it's to give us a beautiful space. And because intersectionality in France, it's starting, by a way, we are starting in that direction, and also to question all this strange gap between the FIFA and the FFF, for instance, between the French government and the different federation. The gap, normally there is no gap.
Right.
If there is the leaders, if there is a right, and if there is something very important to do, normally we have to apply that, and any responsible have to help us in the right direction. And now there is people are afraid. They say that no, it's not our responsibility. It's the responsibility of each federation. Imagine each federation can authorize or not the hijab, and because we invisibilize hijabis, and because the media show the wrong definition of secularism, this is messy. This is messy. People need help, and if you can, express your solidarity, your sisterhood, it will be, the starting point. But now we are just writing with the help of the main concern, the research part, the community organizing, and we will definitely change this part of this this situation, this history.
I want to fly to France right now and help, and I know that's not possible right now for me, but the ways in which you speak so passionately about this. One, thank you. I truly believe. Go, yeah. I saw your finger. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can I add something? You imagine, like, now the hijabeuses, they are really involved in showing their beauty, and showing that they are player like others. There is no differences, and the hijab, it's not something. It's not proselytism. It's the behavior that we have to be careful about that. But the behavior of these athletes are so powerful, so positive. We have to respect that, and that's why they are just showing on the pitch, what they are, and for maybe people start to deconstruct their own, misunderstanding and false discourses. But we're just starting. If you want to help us or be connected, or send us, I don't know, any examples, be free for that. And we are just starting this campaign. We need a lot of things, of course.
Yeah, and money being one of them, an investment into that need. And so I think, as we remember that, there is Rachel's put in the contact information and some ways to continue to follow Haïfa and the work she's doing. So one, thank you for that. And two, you know, support is there, the sisterhood is there. And so let's bond together. Joanna, we actually had another question. If you're okay, I'd love to pivot to the question from the audience member. And I think a lot of us would have a motion to have this question also asked. So I'm in support of it as something that is a little bit relevant to even today in the World Cup on the horizon. So main organizations like FIFA have hired people that were fired from other jobs in soccer. And unfortunately, to some of them, this seems to trickle down to players and harm their particular identities, as it's all about money for FIFA and federations around the world. So how can we as a collective get to these important people in these powerful seats to truly listen to us without completely stop watching the games or stop buying gear? Any thoughts on that, Joanna?
Yeah, I think it's an important question, especially as we're looking to the kickoff of the Men's World Cup this week. And I think part of it is, you know, when I was talking about like, who are the voices that aren't being heard, that aren't being amplified? You know, there are queer athletes who have stories that they want to be telling or that they're telling, but people aren't really listening. And so I think it's really important to lift up those voices. I think similarly, there are players who care about these issues a lot and, you know, are speaking out about them. You know, if you look at our social feed today at Athlete Ally, we have a video from a player who specifically, you know, has used his profile and his platform as a professional soccer player to speak up for LGBTQ allyship and against human rights abuses and against racism. And so I think it's important to make sure that, you know, we're talking about those athletes, that we're elevating their conversations, and, you know, just making sure that the narrative isn't being driven in a way that really propagates the whole kind of stick to sport mentality. Like, we need to talk about social justice when we're talking about sports. And we need to talk about the ways that sports can be a mechanism for bringing about social change, because we've seen it happen throughout history. We know that it can happen. And something I would just add there that isn't quite in response to that question, but something I just wanted to mention is that, you know, social change and this kind of systemic change doesn't just happen at the highest levels of sport. It happens in the conversations that we each have with our spheres of influence. So that's why I would really encourage everyone on this call to think about, you know, who are the folks in your network that need to hear about, you know, about this campaign that we've been talking about today, that you know, that don't know about it, but might have ideas about it, might, you know, be able to provide support in some way. And I think it's really important to just, you know, look at who around you needs to hear about this, and who, you know, you can be a source of information and connection and letting people know what a pathway could be for them to make a difference too.
Yeah. I think the most simplest ways when I think about, you know, on the non-financial side, social media is amazing and horrible all at the same time. But for the amazing pieces, we can share, we can retweet, we can link to things. If we amplify the voices of others, you know, following, you know, Muslim women doing the work and amplifying their voice as it relates to these issues, you know, following LGBTQ and Athlete Ally and other things, that you just, a retweet, a like, a share can go a long way. And when we talk about the financial side, I think we have to remember those financial investments we make on the most individual level. And I know Giving Tuesday is something coming up after, you know, the holiday weekend, and it's not a lot of money. I don't make a lot of money, but I do find ways on Tuesdays, you know, that Giving Tuesday, to just find a number of different organizations amplifying different voices and giving a little bit of money to each of them on that day specifically, and then sharing who they are. what their mission is, what they're doing to amplify our marginalized voice. So there's certainly ways outside of just purchasing the gear. And yeah, we need you to purchase the gear. That's a good thing. We need you, to have viewership. The NWSL, the numbers coming in were fantastic. There are other ways, and the non-financial side of going and reading, even just sending Haïfa an email and saying, that is amazing what you're doing. I appreciate it. Here's a follow-up question. It gives Haïfa the energy to keep going. This is what we need at the highest. And again, even, to Joanna's point, in our own spheres. So there is one last question, and I do apologize, but we're probably not going to have time for it because I always promise under an hour. So we will make sure the question is for actually Haïfa. We will get that to her and ensure that you get a follow-up to that. But everyone, thank you. And I hope this conversation you've left and will leave motivated, inspired to keep going, keep making progress in your spaces, being an ally in so many different ways that we've talked through with Coffee and Progress. But one, bring your most authentic self, share others' authentic identities, allow them to be visible, not invisible, and the game will keep getting better for the next generation, the generation after that, and hopefully even for our generation. I'm not lost on ours. I think there's still a lot we can do to make it better today and tomorrow. But please, everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And for those celebrating Thanksgiving, I wish you the most love and thankful holiday with your friends and family. So everyone, thank you. Thank you, our special guest, Haïfa, Joanna. Thank you.